Hello, I'm Nancy Sirianni. School is a child's workplace. It's their second home. And as we learn more about how children are affected by their environments, we're developing a better understanding of just how vulnerable they really are. The ChildSafe School program addresses several environmental exposures that are commonly found in American schools. Exposures that we know can adversely affect our children's health. Childhood rates of asthma, allergies, neurological problems, and even more serious chronic illnesses and disabilities are on the rise. Many of these are triggered or exacerbated by environmental exposures. Today we'll be talking about several issues that are part of the ChildSafe School program with its primary author, Patti Wood. Patti will talk about why schools are unique environments for children, and then discuss the whole issue of how we clean schools and how the choices that are made about the products used in schools can have real impacts on the health of students, teachers, and staff. Finally, Patti will talk about an emerging issue that's concerning many parents and teachers alike, and that is the increasing use of highly fragranced products. After Patti's presentation, we'll come back to the studio for some Q&A, and you'll have a chance to ask your questions via Facebook. So thank you for tuning in. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the developer of the ChildSafe School, Patti Wood.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to present part of our ChildSafe School program today. First, I would like to just review a little bit what we're going to be speaking about. Schools are unique environments, and we have green cleaning programs that are in every school that we would also like to review in a little bit more detail, and an emerging issue that we feel is very important to discuss as far as schools go, in fragrances. I'd like to take a little time here at the beginning to review about why children are uniquely vulnerable to environmental exposures. Pound for pound, children take in more environmental toxins than adults. They breathe more air, they eat more food, as well as take in more environmental contaminants. For instance, children are actually breathing about twice as fast as adults, and so they take in more air and any contaminants that are in that air. And this happens on a daily basis in a child's life. Secondly, children are still developing, so their immune systems, their detoxification systems, their elimination systems are not fully developed. They also lack certain enzymes that adults have that help them detoxify harmful chemicals. Growing bodies, or rapidly developing physiology, also makes children particularly susceptible to environmental exposures because of rapid cell division, and there are windows of vulnerability or susceptibility during their developmental years. These windows are broad, and they extend from preconception through the end of adolescence. Young elementary school-age children and those going through puberty are at particular risk. The same dose of the same chemical during different periods of development can have very different consequences. And then lastly, children's behavior, especially that typical behavior of young children, puts them at great risk, that hand-to-mouth behavior that goes on almost constantly at young ages. They also play close to the ground, places where chemicals can accumulate. They lie on their desks. They sit and they lie on floors. They eat snacks directly off their desks. They put gum on their desks and then put it back into their mouths. I know that all of you are familiar with this kind of gross activity, but it happens every day in a school classroom. And they engage in that facial contact all day long. It's interesting to note that this is how human children actually learn about their environments, and that's through their senses. And so by doing what they are naturally prone to do, they are actually putting themselves at great risk. So let's look at school as a unique workplace environment. Children spend about half of their waking hours in school. If they attend a preschool or a pre-kindergarten program, that could be a significant number of years, actually 14 or 15 years. And these are some of the most important developmental years in a human life. So it's critically important that school environments do nothing to disrupt or harm this delicate process. Lots of jobs are being done in schools every single day, and you have administrators and clerical staff working in office environments, you have maintenance workers overseeing buildings and grounds, you have cooks and food service workers in cafeterias and kitchens, you have art teachers and gym teachers, and then you have your classroom teachers and children, which is your core environment. Chronic exposure to these environments can be very harmful to children. And just as there are many jobs, there are also many environments within a school. We have to look at every single one of these environments in great detail. Now, no federal agency monitors school workplace exposures. And other than the citing of schools, for instance, we don't cite schools next to hazardous waste dumps, but we also have asbestos testing and abatement guidelines recommended by TSCA, the Toxic Substance Control Act. But schools in general are not required by federal laws to meet a certain standard for environmental health. That is mainly left to the discretion of the administration or possibly to a teachers' union if there are complaints. Often complaints go unanswered and unresolved, and often there is a lack of funding. I think that this is one of the main problems with environments in schools today, is that funding is always problematic. Okay, and then risk assessment methods may not be adequate for children. We do have some risk assessment methods. And when there is a specific complaint about a product, perhaps a floor finishing product, okay, a manufacturer can point to the EPA testing and the EPA's recommended exposure levels that are based on the model of a fully grown male. A child is much more vulnerable than a grown man. And besides their physiological vulnerability, children lie on their desks and floors and so on. So that gives them a greater exposure than a fully grown man. Green cleaning programs. This has become quite common in conversations about schools today. We're all looking for green cleaning programs. But what is green? There are no federal regulations for the use of the term green or earth-friendly or environmentally friendly or natural. This allows a manufacturer to use these terms to market their products without having to meet any standard. A holistic approach for defining green is absolutely necessary, with protection of human health being at the center of this list of attributes. The list could be further refined by looking at our most vulnerable populations, which is children, and developing the criteria to protect this particular group. In schools, we can argue that if we are protecting the kids who have asthma and allergies, the pregnant teachers, and those who have chronic health problems and chemical sensitivities, then we are protecting everyone by default. This idea can also be applied broadly to the list of attributes. If you choose products that contain no chemicals that are harmful to humans, then those products are generally safer for the environment as well. What is greenwashing? Greenwashing is basically when a company or an organization spends more time and money claiming to be green through advertising and marketing than actually implementing business practices that minimize environmental or human health impacts. It's like whitewashing, but with a green brush. There is some criteria that we use when we are talking about green cleaning. We have material safety data sheets, or MSDS sheets. These sheets are required by OSHA in workplaces. So these sheets actually give detailed information about the nature of a chemical, such as physical and chemical properties, health, safety, fire, and environmental hazards, and they are designed for workers who may be exposed to hazardous materials on the job. But they can also work for us too, especially at schools, and we can identify the active ingredient or ingredients and see how much of that is actually in the product. It is usually a very small percentage of the total product, about 2 to 5%. And unfortunately, the rest of the product ingredients are usually lumped into one single category labeled inert ingredients, and they do not have to be disclosed. This has to do with trade secrets, and it is strongly supported by a very strong and powerful industry. So unfortunately, many of the so-called inert ingredients also have health risks associated with them, but there are no MSD sheets that actually talk about each individual inert ingredient in each product because we actually don't know what they all are. So let's look at green cleaning programs and certification of products. There are third-party certification programs that are available to us when we're looking at products that we purchase for schools. Their standards vary, although they are basically looking at the same things, which is environmental health and human health, environmental health being the most prominent. But none of them are designed to be protective of children. Remember that EPA standard that protects the adult male, the fully grown adult male. We have the same problem with these third-party certification standards. So EcoLogo is one such certification. And these standards set metrics for a wide variety of criteria in some or all of the following categories: materials, energy, manufacturing and operations, health and environment, product performance and use, and product stewardship and innovation. Did you miss the criteria for children, protecting children's health? You did, because it's not there. All right, so we have Design for the Environment, which is a US EPA standard. We call it the DFE program. It developed several different programs and tools to help stakeholders evaluate human health and environmental attributes of chemicals in products. They have requirements that are similar to other third-party certifiers and what they call a safer choice standard. They actually have a label. If you see a label on a product and it says safer choice, EPA, it's coming out of this Design for the Environment program. When you see this, it means that the Safer Choice scientific team has reviewed or screened each ingredient for potential human health and environmental effects, and that based on the best available experimental data and EPA predictive models, the product contains only those ingredients that pose the least concern among chemicals in their class. The USDA Bio-Preferred program. We really like this because they are promoting bio-based products, but it is actually coming out of the USDA, which is concerned about the use of agricultural products. So it's managed by the USDA, and the goal of their Bio-Preferred program is to increase the purchase and use of bio-based products. Program's purpose is to spur economic development, create new jobs, and provide new markets for farm commodities. Green Seal has been around for a long time. They offer a third-party certification based on leadership sustainability standards and help protect the natural world and human health. They have a very, very broad range of clients that they work with, manufacturers that they work with. One of the problems with Green Seal is that it, too, does not base these standards on a child's unique vulnerability or a child's weakness for exposures. We produced the ChildSafe Guidelines, which are guidelines that we have actually developed based on all of these other third-party certification programs, and yet we also put in the vulnerability of children into our equation, or what we were looking about, our criteria. And so we have said that there really is a wide availability of safer products, and some of these products are actually made from food-grade ingredients. And you see this across the board, actually. If you go to a grocery store today or a hardware store, you will see that there are many, many more products that meet a higher standard because people are demanding them. So the availability is there, which wasn't there 10 years ago even. We have third-party certified, which I said we are actually using the third-party certification organizations as a baseline, a starting point. And then we are saying only bio-based ingredients. So what are bio-based ingredients? They are minerals, they're plants or botanicals, even plant oils, forestry products, marine products, things that come from the environment that we use, and then they go back into the environment after our use. They go down drains, or they wind up in our air, and they do little or no harm because you're taking it from the earth and you're putting it back into the earth without doing any harm. So why should we use bio-based products? Well, basically, we have reduced or no exposure to carcinogens, mutagens, or teratogens, reduced exposure to toxic chemicals that can cause a myriad of adverse health impacts, reduced exposure to chemical allergens, reduced exposure to hazardous chemicals that can cause respiratory illnesses, reduced exposure to volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, that can cause allergic skin reactions, headaches, fatigue, other neurological issues, reduced exposure to hazardous chemical fumes that can cause lung damage, and then the use of bio-based products often lessens the burden on the environment as well, which I just described. A health rating of 0. If we go back to our MSDS sheets, there are a couple of different health ratings right on those sheets. You're always looking for a health rating of 0. Anything beyond that is not safe for our children. VOC levels less than 1%. There are even some natural products or bio-based products that will have a VOC level of 1%. Or slightly less. And those would be, oils coming from citrus products and so on. No endocrine disrupting chemicals. We talked about how important it was to remove endocrine disrupting chemicals from products, just because even small amounts can do irreversible harm. And then no fragrances. And we're going to get into this a little bit more, but fragrances is a very complicated ingredient in a product, even though on the label you will see only a single word, and that is fragrances. Okay, now we're going to show you two short film clips of Pat Pizzo and Mike Sheehan. These are school facility directors who are doing exemplary work in their own districts with their green cleaning programs.
We don't look at petroleum-based products as being necessary or really even useful. We found better products that are bio-based, and that's what we prefer. Some of the general cleaning products, for example, would be a peroxide-based cleaner, where you're off-gassing oxygen, as opposed to VOCs, which you're going to have your staff and ultimately your children be exposed to when you're dealing with petrochemicals. And to us, that's just not acceptable in the school environment, and we're just not going to use those products. It just doesn't work for us. To me, you can't have a product that has a level of being toxic and have it be something that we would accept as part of our green program here. We choose to use bio-based products because we feel that's the best solution. I'm not comfortable using a substance that has any level of toxicity around our children.
As time went on, we realized there are non-toxic alternatives for just about every cleaning product in use by school districts today. Examples are products that contain no fragrances or dyes, floor finishes that contain no styrene. We're happy to say today that we are 100% green. Change is never easy. When we first looked at alternative products, we got the same old stories that it's not going to work, the products are expensive, the staff doesn't want to change. So we were able to form a committee of custodians, of teachers, of staff members, and we took a hard look at the products in use and the alternatives out there, and we experimented. We took different products and we tried them, and we found which one we felt worked the best, and we would take that and use that product for a year in an elementary school, and it worked out very well. If you take this program step by step, slowly and methodically implement this program, keep everyone involved throughout the process, this program will succeed beyond your wildest expectations.
As you just saw, Mike Sheehan talked about how important it was that this green cleaning program be a team effort. And so let's just talk about that. The core of a team effort here are custodians, administrators, teachers, and parents. We've left out the suppliers or the distributors of these products. Very often, they actually dictate what a school's cleaning program looks like. They'll come in and they'll say, we have this line of products and you can use this for this, or we have a new product, why don't you try it? I'll give you a sample. And that's kind of how cleaning programs happen in schools. But they should not be part of this team effort. So let's talk about custodians first. They play a huge role. First of all, they're on the front lines. Okay, this is their occupational exposure. Many custodians will tell you that they have acute problems dealing with and using these everyday toxic cleaning products. Nausea, headaches, burning eyes, skin problems, throat problems, all very common complaints. And chronic health effects are harder to link to these exposures, but the chemicals they are using are all associated with more serious health problems that could come down the road for them. Administrators, in partnership with teachers and parents, can also play an important role. But the reality is that purchases come from facilities departments. So, do parents really know that the important decisions about their child's health is being made by someone who has no background in children's environmental health? It's a really important thing. Sometimes I talk to parent groups and I say, you know what, the most important person in your school district, as far as your children's health is concerned, is the facilities director. And they look at me with a blank stare, like, what are you talking about? It's because they order the products that are used every day in the schools. So knowing that cleaning products play such a major role in indoor air quality should place a really high priority on purchasing cleaning and maintenance products that are safe. Now let's look at the rationale. There are higher rates of asthma. 1 in 7 children in school today suffers from asthma. Any school nurse will tell you that the most common complaint of children during the school day is that they need to come in for a puff on their inhaler. And they have row upon row of these inhalers with a little piece of tape with the kids' names marked on it. This is really new. I mean, I know that I'm not a young person, but when I was in elementary school, there was one child in our entire school who had asthma. I even remember her name. It was Wendy. We used to go around saying, "That's Wendy. She's not allowed to run in gym." It was really kind of a unique thing, and we were all concerned about this one child who couldn't run because she had trouble breathing. And so this has become so common today, and clearly it is impacted, by the quality of our indoor air as well as outdoor air. But we spend more time indoors than outdoors. It's over 90% of our time is spent inside buildings, schools, homes, etc. That indoor air quality has really got to be good, especially for our children. Let's talk about the frequency of cleaning products. Schools are cleaned every day. I don't know how many of you actually clean your home every single day, every surface, but we do that in schools. We are in every classroom, we are cleaning every floor surface, we are cleaning every desk, we are cleaning every cafeteria table, every bathroom, every locker room, every gym floor, every single day. This means that we are leaving behind residues on these surfaces that children are in direct contact with every morning that they arrive at school. It's a new exposure to a cleaning product that is on those surfaces. Now let's look at this as a step-by-step process. The most important step is choosing a cleaning product, just a general cleaning product that is absolutely safe, so that if a child by accident actually puts it in their mouth, they will not be harmed by it. So that's the most important thing, that we choose a bio-based, completely safe product for cleaning. The second thing we have to think about is disinfectants. Disinfectants are way overused in school environments, way overused. And it's understandable. You have a classroom where you have 9 children out with strep throat. That teacher is going to want to make sure that every surface in her classroom has been disinfected. So she may ask the cleaning staff to do that, or she may actually bring in her own disinfectant product. The concern is that disinfectants can promote the growth of antibiotic-resistant bacteria or superbugs, and that this is actually considered a major health issue. We all know that the overuse of antibiotics can give rise to antibiotic resistance, but disinfectants can actually produce the same effect. We have very good science on this. There are disinfectants that can be used, or sanitizers, which are not quite as toxic as disinfectants, that can be used regularly. And that we should try to incorporate also habits where we encourage children to wash hands in the classroom, soap and water. And pediatricians will tell you this across the board, that they are just as effective as using a disinfectant product. And then lastly, the next or the last step here is floors and heavy maintenance. Most of a budget for cleaning and maintenance products for a school goes to floor products, both for strippers and for sealers and cleaners for floors. And so the harsh chemicals that are used for stripping floors and sealing floors should only be used during summer vacations or long extended vacations, perhaps in the spring. It should be only at times where you can open all the windows, all the doors in a school when you are doing that kind of work. Never when children are there or will be there the next day after it has been done. Now I'd like to talk about an emerging health threat in schools, and that is fragrances. This is becoming a more and more common problem, and we feel that schools are places where it needs to be addressed, because you have great numbers of people in schools, and many of them in enclosed classrooms for long periods of time. So let's just talk about this emerging issue. While it's possible to eliminate fragrances in products used by schools, it is very difficult to control the use of fragranced personal care products, and even products that are brought into the classrooms by teachers or by parents or by the children themselves. So the fragrance industry, very interesting industry, they are basically regulating themselves. This is very similar to the cosmetics industry, okay? They are also self-regulated. And it's a very powerful industry that seeks to keep their trade secrets and the FDA from telling them what they can do. The fact that they are self-regulating means that we are in the dark about what ingredients are contained in those products. The lack of ingredient disclosure is one of the biggest problems with fragrances. When you look on a product that contains a fragrance or a scent, the only word that you'll find is fragrance. But when you see the word fragrance, you have to understand that that indicates that you are looking at an additional 100 or so chemicals in that product, because a fragrance can be made up of that many chemicals. And many of them are petrochemicals. They also contain phthalates, and phthalates are a group of chemicals that are known endocrine disruptors, and these are small molecule phthalates that actually keep the scent longer so that it lasts longer, it persists in the air. You can tell, these kinds of fragrances, these artificial fragrances, from perhaps dryer sheets that you use in your laundry. The clothes that are washed and then dried using these dryer sheets will smell almost forever like the fragrance, that chemical or that artificial fragrance that is in that dryer sheet. Very, very difficult to get rid of that fragrance. Asthma and allergy triggers. Certainly if you pick a single ingredient in a product that will trigger an asthmatic reaction or an allergy, it would be the fragrance. So we know that for sure. And then we know that there's a growing number of people who are sensitive to fragrances. Many people, they can't go to the theater, they can't go to a concert, they have difficulty going to visit people in their homes when homes are filled with fragrances from plug-in air fresheners, literally from people using dryers and scented laundry detergents. And so these people are really living in a world now which is really uncomfortable for them. They are having reactions, neurological reactions like headaches, they have dizziness, they have inability to sleep, they are very sensitive, so that they even have problems with their skin, because fragrances that are in the air eventually find their way onto surfaces. They will always, fall to the surfaces in a home or into carpets and flooring. So how do we address that? How do we address this growing number of sensitive people? Well, I can tell you that when I speak at programs that are attended by teachers, the high school teachers and the middle school teachers will say, oh my goodness, it is just a nightmare in these classrooms because all these young people are beginning to find themselves, they have money in their pocket, they're going to the local, drugstores, and they are, buying products to make themselves attractive to the opposite sex. So they're just using all kinds of products, from hair products to skin products to makeup, and then actual perfumes and colognes like that. So we have a policy that we have made for school districts on fragrances, and it basically says that no fragrance products shall be permitted inside school facilities. Students and staff shall be requested to eliminate or limit their use of scented products in consideration of those who are sensitive to the chemicals contained in these products. Air fresheners with artificial fragrances would be specifically prohibited from school environments. Director of facilities shall direct the placement of signs notifying students, staff, and visitors of this policy at conspicuous locations at all school facilities. And students and staff shall be given copies of the policy so that they can be referenced in school notices and programs, when they're having an event, so that when the public comes in, people can understand what the policy is of the school district. There have been some school districts who have taken this, very seriously and have adopted policies. It is especially coming from parents who have children with asthma and allergies, who find it very difficult to go to school, just to be in the classroom. And so, they've made exceptions, for these children, and, there has been an effort on the part of the entire school community to do that. But I think that when we're talking about emerging problems in schools, that fragrance is something that we should all be very, very aware of, and even in our own lives. Just think about it when you are actually getting ready to go somewhere and you're using these products. Think about the person that you might be sitting next to who might be sensitive. So thanks so much for spending some time with us today, and we're going to be back in a few minutes so that we can have a conversation about some of these things. So if you go to Facebook, you can actually send in your questions, and we look forward to speaking with you. Thanks.
Looking to make your school a safe and healthy place for everyone and want to know where to begin? The ChildSafe School Resource Guide is a great place to start. The Resource Guide contains scientific information about each of the program's core issues, along with Q&A sheets, sample policies, and short documentary videos featuring respected medical and scientific experts. The videos are designed to help you introduce these subjects to stakeholders in your school community, and the support materials provide the backup for taking specific action. The guide also contains information about emerging issues, as well as an advocacy section with a step-by-step checklist to keep everyone involved. The guide is free for New York residents and only $12 for non-residents. To order, simply click the button at the bottom of this webcast page or call our office at 516-883-0887 after the webcast. And thank you for your interest in making your school a truly child-safe school.
Portions of this program are supported in part by funding from the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute through a grant from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Any opinions, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed are those of the presenters and do not necessarily reflect the views of the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute or the Department of Environmental Conservation.
Hi, welcome back. We would like to remind you again to join the conversation on Facebook, where you can submit your questions, comments, even suggestions. We'll get to as many of them as we can, and we'll continue to address them after the webcast is over. You can visit the ChildSafe School on Facebook anytime for the continuing conversation. So, Patty, that was a lot of information.
There's a lot of
There,
information.
yeah.
I left a lot out, actually.
Okay, well, maybe we'll get to it here.
That would be great.
Just to clarify, do you mind if we go back and address
Sure.
a couple of those things,
Sure.
just to let you expound on them a little bit? You mentioned that there are several third-party certifiers, right? And they have based their testing on an adult male,
Right.
obviously the least vulnerable among us, right? So, so your program, the ChildSafe School program, is upping the standards. That's what this is about. It's so people can go to the website to find a product list, and you are basing this on the vulnerability of the most vulnerable among us, children.
Right. Exactly. We developed actually ChildSafe Guidelines for cleaning products. And those guidelines started with, we used the third-party certifiers as our baseline.
Okay.
And then we thought, what can we make better? Are there products available that are safer than what's required by these third-party certifying organizations? And in fact, there were. And we also looked at why children are so vulnerable and what things in their environment would affect them the most. So we looked at things like VOCs, we looked at fragrances, and we looked at bio-based. We really were very focused on bio-based, acknowledging that there are some natural products or products that are made from botanicals and minerals and so on, that also used in the wrong way could also be harmful in some way. We acknowledge that, but we basically looked for products that could do no harm even if they were used improperly. Because you see a lot of improper use of cleaning products in schools. That schools get cleaned, at night. Many of the custodial staff and crew are not English speaking, and so if we don't have Spanish labels, or Korean labels, language labels on some of these products, it's hard for that staff member to actually know how to use that product just the way it's supposed to be used. And that gets us into dilution, and
Right.
dilution
This
is not the solution.
It's important. This is why it's important for these facilitators, for the, what did you call them? The people who order the products.
Facilities
The
directors.
facilities directors to just put in the hands of the people who are using them the best and safest products.
Absolutely,
If I could
absolutely.
just show this too. There's a lot. There is a lot of.
There are a lot of products that meet a child-safe
yeah.
standard.
Wow.
They are,
It's-
and that was the other thing that we were very concerned about. We didn't want to come up with a list where there were only 4 products on it. So we reached out to manufacturers, and we said, these are our guidelines. These are the guidelines that we think will protect children and staff. And do you have products that meet these requirements? And it was amazing how many of them actually did. We were pretty excited.
It's kind of coming back to basics. I mean,
Yep.
chemical companies are going to keep coming up with new synthetic products as long as we
Petroleum-based
keep
products.
using them.
Yep, absolutely.
But the options are, there are options that are so much better and just really back to basics if we can just switch our gears a little bit and get
That's
these
right.
schools to come on board. you know.
And it's not just schools. I think that there is a much higher level of understanding in schools today about cleaning products in general, and how they impact indoor air quality, or IAQ. But even just in people's personal lives, people are understanding that that they could feel better, their homes could feel cleaner and safer if they were using these products. So the public is actually demanding it. We're talking about a supply and demand situation, and that's a good thing.
It's a great thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
I was just amazed at the greenwashing concept. That there are companies out there sort of touting their greenness with these. I guess if something's called green, right? You were saying there are no standards for environmentally friendly, or you see that all the time. It's
Everywhere.
important for everybody to know that.
It
that
is.
it kind of means nothing.
Yes, it kind of means nothing, and it even means nothing when they actually, take out a particular chemical to talk about, like BPA, bisphenol A has
Right.
been a chemical that has been great concern over. It's an endocrine disrupting chemical. There's been great concern over getting it out of children's products, and so now you see products all over that say BPA free. Well, that's greenwashing. That is actually an example
else
of
does it have in
greenwashing.
it?
It's a perfect example of greenwashing, because now they're replacing the BPA with another chemical called BPS, manufactured by the same company that is actually, that actually has the same kinds of environmental health issues associated with it, or human health issues associated with it.
Wow.
So that's greenwashing, and you're right, there are no standards, and until we have standards for the words natural and green and environmentally friendly and eco-friendly and planet friendly and on and on and on, those mean nothing. These are marketing. These are just marketing terms. It's all about marketing.
Wow.
It has nothing to do with the actual product.
So you spoke about school budgets, and economic issues are always at the forefront, right? So are these products more expensive than your normal chemical cleaning products?
When the green cleaning movement first started, these chemicals were more expensive. They actually did, cost, in fact, a lot more. And so there had to be money in the budget to pay for these.
The bio products.
The
you're talking
bioproducts, or just safer green cleaning products, or safer cleaning products. And so that was a little bit problematic, even though we always think that you can do the same job with less product. This is a common problem, is that you use more product than you really do need. But now that this whole industry has been growing over the past few decades, we now have products that are absolutely cost effective. They're the same, cost competitive with the petroleum-based products.
Okay.
So it doesn't
Important for
cost
people to know.
more anymore to use these safer products. And I might just also add that there's always a question about efficacy. People are always saying, well, that they're green products, but they don't really do the job. Well, that is also not true. We have actually had many school districts. In fact, you heard Mike Sheehan and Patrick Pizzo speak about, their very successful cleaning programs. And I love it when I'm going to speak in a school to a PTA meeting or to a school board, and I go into a school district where, they're using green products, and you walk into that school and there is no smell. You don't have those artificial petroleum-based, fragrances in these toxic cleaning products. And I remember when I came home from school and when my kids came home from school, you could smell the school on their clothes.
Absolutely.
And it was the cleaning product.
So is the object, I know there are people watching and getting involved with this conversation, but are you trying to reach parents who are on PTA, on the PTA, so they will make sure that they are familiar with what the facilities person is doing? Like, that's an object of your program, is to reach parents, teachers. What about the kids themselves, teaching the kids themselves?
Okay, so I'm going to do that in order.
Okay,
I'm going
sorry.
to answer that in order of your question. Okay, so yes, we are trying to reach parents. Parents, are the greatest advocates for their children. Parents know, their children's health better than even the children know their health, and especially moms. And they're very focused on, keeping their kids healthy, and they're also very focused on anything that might be making their kids sick. So we do have a lot of materials in this book, in the ChildSafe School book, that are directed toward PTAs in particular. They are for, there are videos or films about each one of our core subjects in the ChildSafe School program, which are the use of pesticides, use of cleaning products, and diesel exhaust from idling buses, which we spoke about last week. So there are Q&As in each of these sections. There are sample policies for schools to use as a starting point for a policy that their school district could actually adopt.
Oh.
And then there are scientific abstracts. We have a lot of peer-reviewed academic research supporting all of these changes in schools to help protect children's health.
So who will order this book? Who will?
PTAs, individual parents, a school district may order it, a school board may order it.
Let's hope.
Yeah, and in New York State, this is free. So we want to make sure that that anybody listening who is who is in a school district in New York can have this really, really valuable resource. I mean, it's got so much good information on it, and it really takes you by the hand and leads you through the process of getting your school to pass a policy on these really important, what we consider chronic low-level exposures.
Wow. And what's in this book is also on the website?
What's in this book is on the website, every single thing, including the films.
Okay.
So you can see anything right on the website.
So I have a question. You mentioned carcinogens, and I think we all think, at least we know what that is, a cancer-causing agent. But you talked about mutagens and teratogens?
Right.
What are they?
Mutagens is basically, it's genetic mutations that have been found from a particular chemical. And, chemicals are classified as to what, human health problem they can cause. So a mutagen is something that can do genetic damage or create genetic mutations. A teratogen is something that actually can create birth defects. In other words, it has an impact on the developing fetus.
Wow. Some scary stuff.
Yeah, it
that
is
are,
scary stuff.
That are
And-
right in our kids' environments.
Yep.
And all of our environments.
That's right.
All the time, right?
That's right.
Hand sanitizers and antibacterial soap. Which is safer?
I would have to say hand sanitizers without triclosan or triclosan, however you want to pronounce it. Antibacterial soap, this gets into the whole thing of antibiotics or antibacterials or disinfectants that, that actually create superbugs. When you use an antibacterial and you don't kill all the bugs, okay, the bugs that remain, that live through that assault, okay, are going to become more resistant to the next time you use it. And it's the same thing that's going on with antibiotics. And it's a huge problem today just because of the overuse and the misuse of antibiotics and disinfectants and antibacterial products.
We're just creating.
We're
creating a
creating-
monster.
We are actually
Little
are. If you
monsters.
talk to doctors, they will tell you that this is going to be a huge problem in this century. It's going to be the post-antibiotic, crisis.
The floor care products. They represent a pretty large majority of the cleaning products used in schools, right? Are there any best practices a school can implement to limit the need for these floor care products?
Yes. Well, one of them is that you always have walk-off mats. In other words, a walk-off mat, you can have them outside the schools. You can also have them inside, just where the doors are as kids are coming into
Collect
the
the
school.
stuff off their
They
feet,
collect
off their
everything.
shoes?
Walk-off mats, and they're fairly long,
Okay.
so that you have a long time to step on them, or to walk along these mats to get as much off the bottoms of your feet as possible. That helps a lot because there's a lot of, like dirt on the bottoms of your feet and, granules that actually, constantly wear away the surface of that floor sealant that has been put on.
And
And if you have those walk-off mats, you really reduce that damage to the sealant.
okay. And okay, you mentioned the PTA, but if a parent is not, how else would a parent get involved if they weren't involved with the school or the organized school parental thing? Is there something that they can do
Yeah,
when they
well,
send their kids to school?
Yeah, they
They're
have other
concerned
options.
and-
They can talk to the school nurse, especially. I'm assuming that if you have a parent who's really concerned about this, that they may have a child who's asthmatic
Right.
or who has allergies or maybe who has learning disabilities, who's affected by strong odors and by things in their in their classroom that may be like markers and whiteboard cleaners and so on. And that parent could go and speak to the school nurse. I think the parent should first go to the teacher, and then maybe to the principal, and then the school nurse. And in most schools, when you get these three people who are there to care for and take all these concerns about the children in their care, okay, for a few hours every day, then it seems like you can get something resolved. We have seen this happen over and over, that a parent has gone to first the teacher and then the principal and then the school nurse to try to get some support for a change in the way that they're doing something.
specifically for their child, because that's their
Yeah.
concern. That's the way things begin.
It helps everyone too. See, people, children may not be affected by strong chemicals. Some children may not seem to be affected, but they're all breathing it in. They're all taking in the same
Right.
chemical, and so it may affect them in other ways.
Crazy stuff. So I mentioned before, is there any work being done to educate the kids themselves, like within the health ed program, or especially, and we're talking all about the cleaning products, and we really haven't hit on the fragrances. And the fragrances, as you said, these kids are coming to an
Pouring it
age
on.
where they're
That's right.
putting on perfume and cologne.
That's right.
And a health ed class, what better thing to teach them
Right.
than what they are doing that's bad for them,
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Those things are not typically taught in health classes. These health classes, go through some of the major concerns that teenagers are dealing with, and not typically environmental exposures. There are some schools that have incorporated some private programs or some programs put out by some large national nonprofits, by the EPA, where you can actually learn about some of these things. And with every kid having access to the computer, they can all go onto a certain site and read about, Johnny who, has this problem with whatever, and, Jill who has this problem with whatever. But there are no programs that I know of that are actually teaching environmental health.
Because those kids are going to be parents and teachers
That's
themselves
right.
someday.
That's right.
Way too soon.
It's one of the things that we're working on.
Right.
We're working on
Great.
health education.
So I just want to circle back, if I can, to ask you these good practices things. There was a sheet here. One of the things that you are saying that schools can do is use different color cloths to clean different one for the bathroom, or like red for the bathroom,
Yeah.
blue for the
color
keep-
coded cloths. It's really it's such a simple thing, and it would be great if every school adopted this. Like, you know, the cloths that you use, and microfiber cloths are great. They're light. They are extremely useful for cleaning. They come in a million different colors. They're easy to wash. They're very effective at picking up soil and dirt and whatever it is. So you use red cloths for bathrooms, and you use, green cloths for classrooms, and you use white cloths for cafeteria tables. It just kind of keeps, it keeps the same kind of soil or, problematic, cleaning problem right where
Contained,
it belongs.
right.
It doesn't move it around from place to place.
Some
It
pretty
keeps it contained.
simple
These are simple
solutions to
Yeah. Yeah.
big problems. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, very, very informative, and this information is you can get it on the website. You can order this book and it's free if you're in New York State. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So that's going to do it for this second webcast of the ChildSafe School. Next week we'll be back with another program, this one covering the issue of turf pesticides as well as the emerging issue of synthetic turf. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of interest in that discussion. Until then, thank you for watching.